I'm delighted to have you as part of this community. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, YouTube friends. Join us as we unravel the mysteries surrounding Solomon Nunes Carvalho. Solomon Nunes Carvalho, April 27, 1815, May 27, 1897, was an American painter, photographer, author, and inventor. He may be best known as an explorer who traveled through the territory of Kansas, Colorado, and Utah with John Celsius. Frémont on his fifth expedition. Many famous images of the Old West are based on images he made, although many others have been lost or confused with those taken by Mathew Brady and other contemporaries. Now, let's dig deeper into early and family life and unveil the hidden treasures it holds within. He was born in 1815 in Charleston, South Carolina, to Sarah Cohn Zazedo and her husband David Nunes Carvalho, who were both born in England to Jewish families of Portuguese descent. He was named for his grandfather 1743 pre-1811, who had escaped persecution in Portugal and lived in Amsterdam before finally settling in Britain, from which his two sons would emigrate to Barbados and then America. This Solomon's father, David Nunes Carvalho, would help establish the first Reformed Jewish congregation in the United States, the Reformed Society of Israelites, in Charleston in 1825. His brother Solomon's uncle, Emmanuel Nunes Carvalho, was a cantor and rabbi in Barbados, Charleston, and Philadelphia, where he died in 1817. By 1840, David Nunes Carvalho had moved his family to Philadelphia, where they lived in Mulberry Ward with a free black servant. According to family tradition, the younger Carvalho studied with Thomas Sully. Isaac Lisa 1806-1868, Hazen of Congregation KK Mikv Israel, married Solomon Nunes Carvalho and Sarah Miriam Solis 1824-1894 on October 15, 1845 in Philadelphia. By 1850 they lived with his father and family in Baltimore, and had a son David and daughter Charity. Solomon Carvalho considered his Jewish identity important as he traveled through the Atlantic coastal states on business. He was a board member of the Philadelphia Hebrew Education Society in. The following year, he became a member of New York's historic congregation Shearith Israel, in whose cemetery established that year he would ultimately be buried. Solomon and his wife Sarah would help found Baltimore's Beth Israel Sephardic Synagogue, although it disbanded in 1859. Sarah also founded the Baltimore Hebrew English Sunday School before financial reasons led the family to relocate to New York City and a small synagogue in Harlem, the Hand-in-Hand congregation, in 1870. Now, let's delve into the intricacies of career and explore its various aspects. His father had established a workshop in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania by the time Solomon was 19, and another in Baltimore, Maryland by 1849, where both became interested in portrait photography using the daguerreotype method. They also had offices of some type in Charleston, South Carolina, and in New York City. A portrait Solomon painted at age 25, Child with Rabbits, would later be incorporated into national bank notes of several U.S. state banks. In 1853, Colonel John Celsius, Frémont, who had made several trips exploring the West and had unsuccessfully tried to make daguerreotypes to document his group's journeys, invited the young artist to accompany him as he attempted to prove that a central route near the 38th parallel would be the best path for a planned transcontinental railroad. Accepting the challenge, Carvalho traveled from New York to St. Louis by rail, and then took a steamboat up the Missouri River to Westport in Missouri. During the trip, despite the frigid weather which made chemical combinations difficult, Carvalho made near-daily portraits of expedition members, the Native Americans they met, and the landscape. Solomon Carvalho would nearly die on that trip of scurvy, starvation, and frostbite, and he and his friend Frederick W. von Eglstein would be nursed back to health by kindly Mormons in Paron, Utah, and Salt Lake City, as Frémont and several other surviving members would continue to California. Carvalho later recovered enough to reach Los Angeles, California, and its small Jewish community, helping them organize the Hebrew Benevolence Society. A major part of his near 300 daguerreotypes taken during the expedition were lost in a fire. The surviving ones would later be given by Frémont to Mathew Brady to copy on wet plate negatives, and they became mixed up with others of Brady's work. Carvalho published his diary of the 5-month journey, incidents of travel and adventure in the far west, with Colonel Frémont's last expedition 1860, possibly before Frémont's presidential campaign or to fulfill a promise made to Mormon leaders during his recuperation. After the American Civil War, Carvalho moved his family to New York City, but cataracts impaired his continuing portrait work by 1869 and would ultimately blind him. He became an inventor, and 2 patents he received for steam superheating in 1877 and 1878 would not only win the Medal of Excellence from the American Institute of New York, but achieve financial security for the family. He and Sarah remained active in New York's Jewish community, and he tried to harmonize modern scientific thought and the biblical story of creation found in the Book of Genesis in his final years, although that work was never published. As we embark on the next leg of our journey, let's unpack the layers of death and legacy and examine its core elements. Solomon Carvalho died in 1897 in Pleasantville, Westchester County, New York, and is buried in historic Beth Olam Cemetery in Ridgewood, Queens County, New York. His son David Nunes Carvalho (1845–1925) would become a famous paper, ink and handwriting analyst and author, with his forensic work acknowledged by Arthur Conan Doyle, although his testimony at the second trial of Alfred Dreyfus that Major Esterhazy wrote the treasonous notes would fail to acquit the accused officer. Carvalho is considered a pioneer in travel photography as were, for example, Francis Bedford, George Wilson Bridges, Maxime Duchamp, and Francis Frith. Carvalho's words, "Emigration is a gate to the Salt Lake Valley, veiled in obscurity, and unknown to the citizens of the United States." Solomon Carvalho 1852 were memorialized on Emigration Canyon Monument in one of Salt Lake City's parks. A historic marker dedicated to Colonel Frémont and Solomon Carvalho's contribution was raised on Wild Horse Butte in Utah. Filmmaker Steve Revo made a documentary film entitled Carvalho's Journey that was released in 2015 and has aired on PBS. Remember, knowledge is power. Keep learning, growing, and exploring.